Hello, hello again to all, and to all a good afternoon. And considering it's live, it's Saturday, it's the weekend. Another installment that means of Who This Been Watching, the movie review slash TV series recap slash review show that I do here first live on Instagram, IG, on my page at Who This Is One. Goes up a couple days later on my YouTube and wherever you get your audio format or podcast choice. All the DSPs available, so many to name, but if you had to be specific, I'd go with, Apple. Do me a favor, leave me a 5-star rating there if you can. I'd really appreciate it. It helps me get out there, more exposure to those who haven't or don't know about me yet, or who this been watching, or they don't know who this is, and let alone what he's been watching, which is me in this case. Do me a favor there on Apple iTunes, podcast-wise, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcast, everywhere manageable you can get your podcast from is where you'll find this as well. A couple of days after the IG Live Raw feed session goes first. Who this been watching? Thanks for joining me again today. As always, I'm Who This. Acronym, if you haven't known or you don't know by now, if I haven't explained already, stands for Who's Hearing Out, WHO, not the World Health Organization, but Who's Hearing Out, space, dat, urbanized, minoritized, but always emphasized, dat, D-A-T, intelligent, mucho branos, but then again, I'm still trying to feel out if this was a smart buy or not on Amazon. Intelligent is with an asterisk. Spic, me, Latino, Hispanic, whatever. Don't call me Latinx, or I'll fuck you up if you do. Speaking, which what I'm doing right now, point of the podcast, point of all the things I do on YouTube, youtube.com/who this is one. Again, here as well, same applicable. Instagram, who this is one, and also Twitch. I'm trying to get back on Twitch on a more consistent and regular basis. I'm trying to do that as best I can. I'm trying to see how. Well, equipment-wise and all that, I got to get started up with that end first. So that's first and foremost. First and foremost, though, who this been watching live today, Saturday. This is post Joe Biden becoming the president, but we're not here to talk about that, even though that is important, I guess. It's affecting the outcome, the outlook of the country for the next potential 4 years, as far as, hopefully, this fucking year. Unlike who was it, Cuomo de Blasio, that was out there like screaming like a cuck, we ran out of the vaccines this week in New York City as of Friday afternoon, which they forecasted from Monday, leading into, Tuesday or Wednesday, the inauguration, and then Friday they just come and announce, lo and behold, they ran out of the vaccines, which, if you've gotten it out there yourself, shout outs to you. You took the first step into hopefully bettering your health and preventing the virus from taking over any more than it has already or it currently is. Shout outs to those of you suffering. Let me rephrase that. Shout outs to those of you going through it right now, getting the rough end of the stick, be it maybe international wise, as far as I think England is still on lockdown. Other countries too, I think Japan, they said, was about to go back into lockdown or like severe drastic measures to try to remedy the outbreak of cases all of a sudden now. So shout outs and peace and blessings to Japan. Hopefully they're able to sort that thing out. And wherever else in the world, this thing is like ravaging through. It's a global pandemic, of course, so stressing that. But we're not here to talk about that either. So let's leave all the COVID talk aside. That's not important right now. Even though it is taking over the world, it's not important right now. Right now, we're trying to do as best we can to get our minds off that. So Joe Biden is now president. Kamala Harris is now first female vice president. I love it for the fact that we got our first official. Is it first gentleman? No, not first. Second gentleman. It's such a funny title because it's like just putting that on your resume or something, or like an Esquire or anything like that always seems pretentious. But there's something about the combination of second gentleman which seems so funny to me. I don't know. It's like, I could see that as being something that could be done on SNL. God forbid they ever be funny anymore. They can make a skit on that every week I don't know if he's necessarily a dork or like a geek, Kamala Harris's husband. I know she's easy to make fun of because she always sounds like overly enthusiastic or really kind of slurry with the speech. And that's no fault. That's no insult towards Kamala Harris. I like her. She seems cool. She seems like, whatever. Hopefully there's change that comes with Biden and Harris in office now. But again, that's political talk. We're not here to talk about that. Speaking of the inauguration, before we get into today's focus, topic, subject, whatever, Tiger, the HBO series / HBO Max documentary series that just aired a week or so ago on the HBO Max. Before we get into that, taking it back to the inauguration. Listen, it's always a festive thing. It's always a big thing as far as who shows up, who's invited celebrity-wise, who gets to wear their Sunday / presidential inauguration best. Michelle Obama looked incredible, hence the mask, but still, so did, what was her name? Well, Kamala did too. I think, what was it? I saw something about them three, Harris, Clinton, and Michelle Obama, all wearing purple. I forget for what reason exactly, but there was some motif behind it, but they all look good. And surprisingly enough, even Hillary Clinton looked good. Bill's been looking like shit lately. He's looking like a sucked up corpse, or like maggots are really got a head start on him, thought he was dead and just started sucking his skin into his fucking skull bone. Because he's looking, Joe Biden, we make fun of him looking as old as he does, but Bill isn't looking that well either. So I doubt it's a fact of like the Lewinsky thing taking a toll on him, because that was like 25, 30 years ago almost. But who knows what's happening to him. I'd like to have someone check on Bill to see how he's feeling and what he's dealing with right now. But point I wanted to make about the inauguration, it's fantastic. Lady Gaga was there. Later on in the day, they had Katy Perry do fireworks, which, besides the tits and the big, bright, pretty blue eyes, Katy Perry has nothing much to offer, especially as a singer, quote unquote. Listen, she got by, luckily, because being a young, pretty girl with great, milky fucking tits. That's like the easy pass to, skyrocketing career-wise. But also, she has to have or be able to carry a tune and be able to sound at least delightful, pleasant, singing with a guitar as she's done before. But shout outs to her, because fireworks, more than being, and besides being appropriate enough for the inauguration of, and of course fireworks all around, the fact celebrating there's a new president, number 46, Joe Biden, fireworks was done pretty well considering it was live. Now, I don't know if it was pre-recorded. I don't know more specifically if she had a backing track or some syncing over it, whatever, lip syncing, too. Who knows? But it sounded good. It looked great. I don't know why she's blonde of all things, but I think naturally she might be a blonde. I forget. I think I read that somewhere. But then again, I guess you could probably ask Travie McCoy from Gym Class Hero. Shout out to him. You know what I'm talking about, boy. But, yeah, that was cool. But my one big question, and my one leading questioning into today's episode would be, why are we making J-Lo do anything at this point? She's already established a household name. I forget if we gave her the nickname J-Lo, or if she dubbed herself J-Lo, who gave her J-Lo, how'd she get J-Lo, how'd she stumble upon J-Lo to begin with. But she's known. She's an entity at this point. So shout outs to her. For her age, she's looking incredible still. Turning heads still. Bikini pics, ass pics, or what do they call it? Belfies on Instagram every so often. Still. And still, we run and flock to it. Queen, yas, whatever else you put in the comments there. I'm guilty too, but I'm guilty more of the drool emoji or drool next to the peach emoji because, come on, straight up. I'm not trying to be I'm not out here to suck her toes or kiss her ass. Well, I wouldn't mind kissing her ass, but I'm not here to get brownie points with her because of IG. I think that'd be the worst place to start. But why the fuck are we making J-Lo sing? What's the purpose of Jennifer Lopez with as wonderful as she looks and she's holding up, as I guess you could say talented. I mean, she's been able to dance. It's always a pleasure to watch her dance, especially in the music videos. No complaints there. And as fantastic as her ass is still holding up at that age, I'm sure she has routines, diets, trainers, etc., all that she's rigorous with. Considering the Puerto Rican genetics, and I know I'm Spanish too, gravity starts to take a hold of you and drags you back down to earth/reality after a certain age, especially and unfortunately to our women in the majority. And the men don't matter so much. Our biggest worry is about losing our hair, which, I'm already going through those woes right now, so it's just a matter of if and when. More likely when I'm gonna just take it all off. But I gotta keep it real for the props, so hopefully not yet. But speaking of J-Lo's glorious ass, why would you make her, of all things, and for the sake of this is being viewed by the world, so everybody's tuning in because apparently everybody's had it up to here and beyond with fucking Trump. So we was ready to get him the fuck out of here. I can't speak for everybody, of course. There's the MAGA crowd out there. There's the Trump sympathizers and supporters. No disrespect to them at all, but at least they weren't looking forward to this day or him getting impeached. But a majority of, or a bigger chunk of the world was looking forward to Joe Biden being sworn in. So of all fucking times, of all days and occasions, it's supposed to be a joyous occasion, an affair of everybody getting together. Peace is taking back the White House. Love is prospering again. We won. Whatever. Hashtag dump the Trump or whatever and all that. Why are we making it sing? Why does Jennifer Lopez, the one thing she does not do well, only second to her fucking acting, is that put center stage and given a spotlight for her to do her rendition of whatever song that was, which she struggled through herself. And she did the thing that Mariah Carey started doing. I think it might have been Whitney first, but Mariah, if anything, picked it up and ran with it, the fucking holding your head or pressing your temple down as you fucking vocalize and really feeling it at that moment. And then the one hand up like, glory to God and hallelujah, whatever too, we've seen enough of that already. And I mean, Ariana, I think, does it too. Shout outs to her. Ariana Grande, who is a tiny little petite pretty package of a woman. I mean, we've got some guys we can ask how she's doing otherwise. But I'm sure, besides the pretty package and the pretty little bow on top she comes in as a little perfectly wrapped gift that she is to us, our ears and our eyes, would have been a much better choice, considering we got Lady Gaga, and she did her Gaga thing as always and really, lived up to her name. Because if you got a name like Lady Gaga, you better be fucking talented and really fucking be able to steal the show whenever you're throwing the ball and you're holding said ball. So, which she did easily. But J-Lo, she dropped the ball. And I think in this case, we would have hoped she would have dropped the ball with her back turned to us. So we would have gotten a good glimpse of that ass. Or at least appreciate that big old Puerto Rican peach back there too. Play some honey on top, dripping. Let me not be disrespectful because she's way bigger than I am and got a way bigger platform than I do. And A-Rod too, shout outs to him. I like him on Shark Tank. I never bothered to watch him swing or hit a ball with his baseball bat. But I'm sure he's having fun doing that at home with J-Lo. So shout outs to them both. But J-Lo should not be singing. I don't understand why we even heralded her or put her on this pedestal as far as J-Lo's a singer. I was never guilty of that. Shout out to Super Nitro or the real _ Super Nitro. Was it his debut for Global, I forget the name, Global Impact, something Global Wrestling, next week, Saturday in New Jersey. So shout out to him for that, and shout out as always to My Friend the Wrestler podcast. We'll be coming back soon with more new episodes as well. But yeah, back to the point I was making. Excuse me for that. J-Lo should not be fucking singing. J-Lo should only be prancing around in a tiny little skirt of any sort of material of choice. Leather, pleather, cotton, lycra, yoga pants, preferably if you're going to talk about long inseam pants too. leather pants. There was a whole deal with Instagram too as well. She's always posting shit in the studio looking or trying to look busy. Because I know, listen, the engineer's got a fucking whole ordeal going on with him or her. Could be either gender. But let's, for the sake of purposes of this example, him. The engineer is having a hell of a time trying to debate where the blood flow goes with J-Lo in the studio, and she's got one of her fucking fits on that's skin tight, as we all expect it to be at all times. The blood flow is fighting to see where the fuck it goes. Either the head up top, the one we're supposed to use for, signing paperwork and knowing better than to look at J-Lo's ass too long in the studio when she's singing in the booth so we can keep this job and keep this kid going, or let the blood flow all the way down into that other head, which tends to take over a lot of times because, again, it's J-Lo with that fucking fantastic ass of hers, that glowing skin and face of hers. Forget the acting, forget the singing, because, of course, I think if you're smart and logistical, you'd rather forget either or that she does either that stuff and just look at her. So then you're debating internally. Your fucking immune system's debating. Your blood flow's trying to see where the fuck to go. So you don't get in trouble, you don't get fired, but then also you're a man. You got to feed into your testosterone and got to give credit where credit's due. If anything, it's like a salute, but at least let's keep it under the table, under the console. That's what I'm saying. If I was an engineer, I'd have that debate with J-Lo. I wouldn't be able to work with her. I do one session, or it better be like one session she just walks into, and then I don't know what to do, guys. I got to leave. I got to be out right now. But yeah, okay, Global Syndicate Wrestling. I apologize. I was trying to figure out the second word in those three words. I apologize, brother. But yeah, Global Syndicate Wrestling. You'll be doing your thing with them soon enough. Super Nitro. Appreciate you for coming through. Yeah, that's J-Lo. Also, briefly before we get into today's episode, the main focus of the topic, shout outs and rest in peace to Larry King. Just passed, I believe, this morning as we record. So that's very unfortunate. Sad to hear. May he rest in peace. And if I could accomplish at least a fraction of, in comparison of what his career was, then I done a good job. Or I'll be able to at least support myself and keep feeding into these compulsive habits and purchases as far as his hat is concerned. Shout out to Larry King and shout out to J-Lo. More specifically, your ass. Let's keep that. We need to inaugurate that as the ass to envy. I mean, listen, there's Kim Kardashian. I mean, there's a young Kim Kardashian with the unibrow and still looked Albanian as fuck, which I prefer much more than the ass we have now, which is like disproportionate, horizontally sloppy. It's spilling out each side, and her hips aren't built for that naturally. So I don't blame Kanye if allegedly, if it's true or not, they are getting divorced, because maybe even he's like, damn, bitch, that's too much ass or whatever. And then there is Beyonce, actually. Beyonce is a fantastic ass as well. Shout out to Jay-Z. You know what you're doing with that thing, proof in the pudding, all the children you've been having as well. I don't think I'd ever stop having children with Beyonce if I had her in my hands, in my grasp. But yeah, it's debatable. I mean, whoever you respectfully put up in your annals of ass history, I think J-Lo's a very strong front runner, regardless. And I mean, she could probably hold that title. She's been holding on to that title since the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, and now we're in the 2020s. And we're still drooling over the fact that she blesses us with a posting of it every so often, a good glimpse and view of it. I think she's at the age now, she's like, you know what? She might as well be like any old Puerto Rican aunt from wherever part, more specifically New York, After a certain age, okay, maybe they're still married, maybe they're not, but they still want some attention. They still want some eyes leering. They don't mind it as long as you don't get creepy or perverse with it. Why not? They want to feel like too, or wanted or desired as well. So why not? Maybe she's at that age. It's boiling up inside her. Even though she's sitting on millions and most likely billions and got that, together combined, they probably got billions themselves together. A-Rod and all that too. Speaking of sports though, now we'll get back into the topic, delve into that. So today, I did do this originally on Wednesday, but IG crashed on me when trying to save the video, so I wasn't able to, unfortunately. But here we are today with the recap of the Tiger HBO Max doc/series. 2 episodes, about an hour and a half each one. They debuted in preceding Sundays, and they just aired. And they're airing regularly on HBO, or if, like me at this point now, getting with the times, you pretty much got it on demand or in your queue to watch whenever you want. Shout out to Hulu, shout out to HBO with the HBO add-on for Hulu as well. I never have been a big sports guy myself, so I can't really speak to or know the depths of the finer details of Tiger Woods' accomplishments while he was active, and even now when he's active again as an older man, but still apparently and seemingly dominating the sport all over again like he did in his youth. I was always a wrestling guy, so shouts against to Nitro. Always wrestling was always the only sport, quote unquote, that I knew of or I knew fairly well. But still, I embrace it and I hold up to it. But yeah, Tiger Woods at some point in his prime, in his peak of, was the epitome of sports icons. I mean, up there with Jordan, up there with whoever else you can name, because I always draw blanks when trying to name sports icons, because again, I don't know like that. I never watched sports. It was never my thing. But he was definitely up there. If anything, his own stratosphere, because not only was he a black man dominating a predominantly and more than anything privileged white, let's be honest, kind of boring sport, but he took it to other levels that it never seen before. Proof of that would be when he was in his prime, people that never even thought or considered watching golf, of all things, or even enthusiastic or excited about watching golf, of all things, to spend their day like that, would tune in for Tiger. I keep hearing about this Tiger guy. He's amazing. He's hitting hole-in-ones, birdies, all this other shit too. Or, I mean, golf in general is just like the weirdest sport you could think of too, because it's one of, or if not the only sport I can think of at least, where the least amount of points you have is better for you because that's how you win. So the least amount of strokes or attempts to fucking hit the ball or times you actually hit the ball to try to get into the hole actually makes you the winner. So the less effort required is the key in the winning method, which is odd because then you think golf is already rich, white, and privileged enough and lazy enough because they can't even be bothered to walk from hole to hole. They got to take the little golf carts. How'd they do it back when then? But before they had golf carts invented like that, because, well, I don't know how old golf is, to be honest, too. Because then I don't think golf was around when, like, the Model T Ford was around, when you had to, like, get out the car, crank your engine, tune it, and then have it run for, like, however many miles before you had to do it all over again. So they definitely didn't have golf carts back then, if golf existed. So then when you did all that shit, imagine now the fact that you got these fat white men, can't be bothered to do anything else but, chomp on a cigar, talk business, mostly underhanded, dirty. Oh, speaking of dirty, shout out to Dirty Heels joining in as well. Salutes to you guys, much appreciated. Chopping cigars, talking shit, grabbing them by the pussy way before Trump was and all that stuff too. They can't even bother to get the fat asses out the carts and walk to the next hole, which is all they're doing is dumping their balls in the holes and moving on to the next one, which is dirty enough, which is, it's something you expect out of a fat, dirty white man with a dirty, corrupt business and dirty, underhanded tactics, So I don't know how long golf's been around for. I Google it, but I don't feel like it right now because that I'd be contributing to golf in the thought that Tiger didn't matter to golf, like some people are saying now because he made a comeback of all things, which is probable because if you dominated before, if you were a powerhouse, if you were the identity, the most identifiable person for golf in its time, still is, when you're not actively pursuing golf and now you're back in it and you're back as the top tier player, or at least the most associatable name with the sport, why hate on it? Because there's people now saying, oh, he's back, but this isn't good for golf. This isn't good for golf, but they can't elaborate why. Oh, why? Because he's got quote unquote, or asterisk, a tarnished past, a dirty history, or You know, he was in the tabloids for whatever he did and all this other shit too. Come on. Don't give me that bullshit. And that's one of the things that I remembered to begin with the whole scandal back when from, I want to say 2009, 2008-ish, or something like that, when the whole thing broke out about him getting chased in his car by his wife with a golf club of all things. What was it? He crashed into a fire hydrant, hit a tree, all outside his fucking estate / property, his big ass fucking house in simpler terms. And having all that go down for the fact that he was scared that she had found out, or I believe his wife did find out he was cheating. But to put more salt into the wound, it wasn't just him cheating on her with one bitch, or let me not say bitch, because they did kind of paint or overly, well, not so much the doc, but remembering from back when in those times when it was like going on, they did paint the mistress, or the most known of them all, Rachel Uchitel. Shouts to her. She's still not looking that bad, but you know, maybe take it easy on the lip injections or the filler, or whatever you call that shit. They did paint her to be like the only / main guilty party, which I understand with nowadays how things are, and women's empowerment and more female representation in sports, whatever aspect of life too. It's like villainizing her for no reason, or excessively just because the man cheated, but it was her fault. She did it. She led him into this life, and otherwise it would have been this perfect church going, well, actually he's a Buddhist, but this perfect, you know, Buddha fearing man. I don't know what the Buddhists believe in. I'm sorry. I'm not even, actually, no, they believe in like spirits and nature and elements. So forgive me. No offense to the Buddhist enthusiasts out there. But, you know, his upright standing citizen, this black man that broke down racial barriers and dominated a white sport and made it okay for anybody of any color, race, creed, whatever, to do what they want to do and pursue their dreams. No, that's all bullshit. Because he wasn't as perfect as they all painted him out to be before the scandal broke, while the scandal broke, all pinning it all on her as much and as best as possible, just because she so happened to be the woman that he chose to cheat with. But further proof of that is, how many women did he get caught with? Or how many women came out the woodworks and said, hey, I was with Tiger too. I thought he loved me. No, bitch, he said he loved me. I was over here this whole time waiting on him to, I thought, get done with his mother or dealing with his kids. But then, hello, I'm still here too. And then another one, like, oh, fucking like scurrying out the fucking holes like they're rats or roaches or something. I forget the count, if anything. I don't know if there was ever like an official count or not. But there was a lot of women fucking claiming that stake to fame as far as being Tiger's go-to besides the wife. Now listen, if you're on top of the world, as was Tiger Woods, with him starting to go to Vegas, with him frequenting the casinos, these ladies, having his types, his preferences as far as who he wants to be with, who he wants to sleep with, or keep around him as company. As far as these, I'm sorry, hoes go, yes, you can expect that he's going to feed into it, but because there's a whole backstory to it too. And this is the part I really appreciate about the doc, because it gives you better insight. Thank God this thing mostly, I'd say for the most part, mostly wasn't biased as to painting him as a hero or the victim, or trying to villainize him as the bad guy. He did this, he's so horrible, he's deplorable, etc., etc. You know how they do these things sometimes. They're either fluff pieces, these docs, or they're either painted to go extremely this way, extremely that way. It's very rare anymore, at least, since there's a doc coming out every other fucking day, it seems like, from all the streaming services. It's hard to stay neutral, which is sad, because the best docs, the best series, the best things to actually dive into and watch and appreciate are the ones that don't make you have to, that don't make you have to decide if you want to keep watching or not, just because you can't tolerate what they're putting up in front of you. Unlike, let's say, the Netflix series. I know that's a comedy and that's not a documentary, But that Netflix series I reviewed in the last couple episodes, History of Swear Words, there was that episode dedicated to the bitch word, which I wanted to turn off halfway through because it was just getting overly feminist. It was like, every time you call a bitch, you're demeaning a woman, you're putting her down, and it's like dunking her head into a pool full of water and waiting for her to drown every time you say bitch, because that's what a man really means when he says it. A bitch is a bitch, or a bitch is a woman that's making him feel less of a man just for fucking standing around holding his dick and all this other bullshit. But then I stuck through it because, thank God, because the rest of it was funny, but it's hard. It's hard to be neutral anymore with that kind of stuff, and I get it too. Shout outs to D Page International for joining, and shout outs to you. But yeah, getting back to it. So as far as the doc overall, yes, the good thing is it's not overly, extremely, or disgustingly biased. It's fairly neutral. It does bring to light a lot of things that I, as a non-sports junkie, a non-sports fans, and only familiar with Tiger Woods for the sake of him being as infamous as he was during his time and as dominant as he was in golf when he was doing his thing in his prime, and nowadays come back as well too. He hasn't, left our mouths or really left the headlines as far as sports is concerned. It's well documented. He's been followed, and he always will be as far as sports is concerned. Even at his age, he's still, I guess you can say, dominating the sport all over again. Shout out to Smitty's Brew for joining as well. I enjoyed it overall because there is the fact that it could have been all about golf. It could have been all about just him being this evil man or his sins and everything. No, it's a well-rounded piece of just a little bit of everything pretty much. So I don't need to recap for you because if you got HBO, you can go ahead and watch on your own at your own time. I do recommend it, but at the very end of the episode, like I do in every episode, I'll tell you what rating I gave it and why. But right now, let's build up to this little bit I got from it. I know they compared him, and he hung out with a lot. Was it Charles Barkley, Michael Jordan, all these big sports icons, these iconic figures per se. And they called him the Michael Jordan of golf. But I like to run that back and repropose this to you. As I explain and elaborate, hopefully you'll agree, and feel free to chime in the comments or, send whatever you got to send into as well. I think Tiger might actually be more of the Michael Jackson of golf, much more than in comparison to Michael Jordan of golf. But hear me out. All right. So it feeds into his story as far as him growing up. Long story less long, Dad, Earl Woods, rest in peace, I believe he passed, made it a point from a very infantile stage of Tiger that he be enamored or he take immediately to golf like he did. So you got someone from the age of 2 years old who can barely stand up, who's nowhere near being able to wipe his own ass or even say a word properly beside blah 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 blah, is holding a golf club and hitting these fucking balls, not just on the national TV appearance on whatever show that was, I forget the name of, that they showed in the documentary, but then just home videos, footage and shit too, of this tiny little 2-year-old who's probably as big as my head is right now, holding a golf club as a pro would from that younger age and hitting the shit out of that ball like a pro would, like a fucking adult would. At 2 years old, he's fucking doing this. And then they go on to elaborate this whole part about, the dad was I think he was a minesweeper in the military. I think he did that. I kind of dozed off at that part, to be honest. I'm not going to lie. But he was a military guy. So he beat this military mentality or persona into Tiger to be able to focus solely on the golf and nothing but all outside distractions, have no input, make no difference in his game whatsoever, which he actively tried to disrupt him, interrupt him, distract him, all that too, but for the sake of, and his excuse was, so he can get laser focused that much better than anybody else has ever done it. Admirable, but I'll say why I have to disagree with that in a bit. So there's also a part about where at this young age, The dad describes, and a friend describes to back him up, that he would sit a young Tiger Woods in his high chair as an infant in the garage to watch him purposely, dad, hit these golf balls into the garage door for hours upon hours, throughout the whole day if possible, to the point where the little Tiger, baby Tiger, would be so obsessed with watching him do nothing but that mom would come to feed him. That would be the only time the child will remember to turn his head to eat a spoonful of whatever she's giving him, and then keep on watching him throughout the whole time. So in other words, he was enamored from like the youngest age possible. And there is a thing too, as they say, which I do believe in, that from the age, I believe, of 2 to like 5 or 6 or something like that, everything your child is exposed to, or children are exposed to, they soak up like a sponge. So that's the best time to try to teach them another language, a skill, a talent, see what they might take to at hopefully an older age that might help them develop into a more responsible and or tactful adult per se. So his thing was golf, which is scary to think because, okay, it is probable that because he's a child, he's like in a stupefied like coma, a daze, watching his dad do this, because the child wants to imitate the father in what he's doing, literally. Not because he knows what golf is or can understand it, but because he's seen him do it so much, and all day practically, he wants to do it himself. So I think there's that angle. But there's also the fact that golf, of all things golf, seems to be one of those few things that's like too improbable to become like something someone would obsess with or make that their life dream to become. Not no disrespect to golfers, professional, aspiring to be whatever. I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to put down golf in that sense. But what I am saying, golf from that younger age is a little too oddly specific. So it's like, how did dad know to make golf the thing for him to focus on, to beat into his little skull, to have him grow up to be this amazing golfer? It just seems a little too precise. Or how did he even get an inkling of it? I mean, unless the dad was a golfer, which I don't think I paid attention too much to that part if they did mention it, but I don't know if the dad was a golfer or not. I know he was teaching afterwards too, but with the excuse of teaching blonde women so he could sleep with them. Maybe just for the fact that he was probably frustrated he couldn't accomplish his dreams, so he's probably living it through Tiger, but reassuring that the kid will actually do it. I don't approve of those things because it seems like it was just an unhealthy obsession on the dad's part to make sure this kid is a golf legend, a golf professional. But on top of that, there's point in times where he's saying or like talking out loud, preaching out loud that Tiger Woods, of course, is going to be the one to break down racial barriers and unite the people and bring these people all together. He'll stop world wars and all this other shit too. It was like, because he's black and Asian? Or I mean, because what? He was a mixture, an odd mixture of both cultures at that time and age in our country. Maybe that's putting a lot of faith into one child. Well, it is putting a lot of faith into one child, but also it might explain why he ended up growing up the way he did and ended up getting into the trouble he did. Because basically, listen, from the youngest age possible, as far as I understood and as I did my research, he was raised and still is an active believer of Buddhism. Buddhism teaches you basically one of the concepts is to not give in to your desires, but for the sake of the rest of the world, try to give back to them, try to feed into what they need. I'm sure there's a lot more involved in that than just what I gave you, but in no disrespect, of course, I'm not doing further research. But there's always that thing too involved as well, religion. I hate the fact that religion has to be like such a hot topic all the time. I mean, I don't think it'll ever stop being such a hot topic because we still got, the simple fact that this religion believes that religion is wrong. They got a little bit of truth here, but they blemish it, they tarnish it by just being assholes and just animate about this is the only way. This is the only version of the truth according to another man who existed centuries before us, allegedly says his God or whatever shouted out to him at some random point in time said this is what the truth is, and this is the only path you can follow. And you got these other religions, these other, sects of faith that believe what they believe in, and they all got a little bit of truth, all little gems, nuggets, all that too, they contribute. But then it's the people that obsess over it, that harbor over it, and that insist that theirs is the only real, quote unquote, truth. So don't listen to them over there, they're lying. Don't listen to them over there, they're crazy. This, that, the other. Instead of being able to unite everything together and just get together, have one faith, it's everybody, going at each other's throat. And, you got extremists, you got, stereotypes built off of that too, et cetera, et cetera. It's all just a big mess. So as far as having a strict upbringing with that, as well as on top of that, a military parent, one of my worst nightmares would have always been having a military father. Instead, I got a father who never paid rent and just fucking slept with anything with a pussy and a pulse. So I didn't do too much better. I didn't fare too much better in comparison. I mean, if anything, with a military dad, the rent would have been paid on time. That's about the only big difference. But I would have butted heads so much because I'm not saying I'm a rebel. I'm unrestricted. I have no rules or nothing like that too. But I just don't like being told what to do, in the sense of do this or else, or if you don't, you're a scumbag, or you're this and that, the other. But he had a military dad, and on top of that, a very strict ass Asian Buddhist mother. So then this kid was pretty much set up to be nothing but what, like a golf zombie, or just have his life purpose, his life goal be only to be Mr. Professional Golf Man, the best there ever is, was, ever will be. Shouts to Bret Hart in the sense of golf, but lived for nothing beyond that too, because as he grows up, there's a young age. There's a teacher they interviewed when he was younger saying that, oh, well, I remember at one point Tiger came up to me after school saying that I'd really love to try out other sports. I mean, this is also when after school, because legally the kid had to go to school, the dad was making sure that he would practice his golf, of course, because that's what he wanted Tiger to be this whole time. This professional golfer, this golfer that transcends, being at the plethora of golf. He wants him to be like a golf god, pretty much, a golf Buddha, if anything. That's what he envisioned for this fucking poor boy. Now, shout out to 810_pro_wrestling_podcast. Shout outs to you guys. Wave. There we go. So it's crazy to think that at a young age he actually manifested not so much he's tired of golf, not so much he hates it, or not so much it's like a burden to him. He's probably too young to even say that. But he did openly express what children are free to do. If they don't like something you're pressing onto them or you're forcing onto them, why not let the child decide? But then, of course, we never would have gotten Tiger Woods as we've gotten. But then don't you think in the long run, if we never would have gotten Tiger Woods the golfer, we would have settled with Tiger Woods the financial advisor, Tiger Woods the fucking half black, half Chinese monk, whatever he decided to do with his life. Wouldn't he have been better off? Okay, he wouldn't have had the millions and almost billions courtesy of Nike. He wouldn't have had the left and right, up and down, wherever you look, there's blonde-haired, hopefully the drapes match the curtains, pussy surrounded him like he did, because he had to admit to being a sex addict and all that shit too. But because it was beaten into him that he had to be a golfer. Not just a golfer, but the golfer that, besides being on top of his sport, he's got to be slash Buddha, slash God, slash, World Nations, not World Nations, United Nations, excuse me, man on top of all that shit. Wear all these hats, don all these capes, and save the world somehow, according to his fucking dad, who had none of this working up here. That head, he was too busy with his own head down there too, sneaking, as per the documentary and as per people that could attest to it, his friends who exposed him for what he was, sleeping with women in front of the child. So of course, what do you expect when this kid grows up? He actually wants to have a girlfriend, as per his first girlfriend, who said, when he was with me, he was free. He was unhinged from the obsession with golf, pretty much, that he had, because he does admit to it a point. As an adult, I'm obsessed with golf. Golf is all I want to do, pretty much. First girlfriend proves, hey, you know, when he's with me, he lets his guard down. He's all right. He's not so manic obsessive over golf. He can actually look at living a normal life. Eventually, too, outside of golf itself, maybe wean out of golf a little bit. And then the one time, as per Doc, he spends the night at her place instead of coming back home from college, as he told his parents, I'm going to stay the weekend at college, but wink, wink, I'm underneath my girlfriend's sheets for the rest of the weekend. He gets in trouble. And basically, the dad yells and screams and is only worried about this bitch is going to get knocked up and fuck up the whole plan, all our dreams, everything we worked for up until this point. She's going to throw it out the window, having a baby, you dumb fuck, all this other shit too, etc., etc. So then, of course, this leads to a part which is plausible. I mean, it could be just for the sake of, who knows, the mom wrote that shit and made him sign it, or it was all the mom and dad that wrote it, but apparently he then wrote a letter to his first girlfriend saying that basically, I can't be with you, you're detrimental to my life, you're going to get in the way of everything, you're going to fuck up the whole bag, etc., etc. Love, Tiger, pretty much at the end. And deaded her. So that was it with that. So then the kid, or the young man, becomes obsessed only with golf. The dad focuses him on being the youngest to enter the master tournaments, to win it too, on top of that multiple times like he did as well too. So then, of course, the money starts pouring in, the fame, the attention, the glory. He's Mr. Golf pretty much at this point. So who doesn't know who he is? He's bringing in people that don't watch golf on a regular to watch only for him, cheer him on, and then they put him on this fucking pedestal just because he's Mr. Squeaky Clean, whatever. He's perfect. He's a good guy. He means no harm. But meanwhile, no one's asking or no one's checking on Tiger himself. They're just assuming, oh, he's staying out of trouble. He doesn't drink. He doesn't do drugs. He's young. He's not around with this woman, that woman next week, and another one the other week, whatever, too. Oh, he must be the perfect guy. He's a role model. He's like the embodiment of who's supposed to be these iconic figures. And again, the term I hate so much that we put on these people, role models. Who assigned him to be a role model? Because then when you go on the fucking Oprah, like he did in the mid-early 90s, I forget when exactly, and he identifies himself as a quote-unquote Complanasian, which is black, white, Native American, and Asian, his own concoction of what he came up with. That's a whole nother thing to explain too, because in his mind, sure, dad's military, dad's black. In his mind and what he sees every day. Mom is Asian, mom's a Buddhist, I'm being raised by my mom to be a Buddhist. This is what I know. Okay, two worlds coming together. I'd love to be able to explore this one day with somebody who is biracial. Let's say even as simple as black and white. Let's say even broader than that, like Jamaican and Japanese or something like that. That would be a bad bitch, by the way. A Jamaican Japanese girl. And no offense to saying bitch, but bad bitch in the terminology sense of, you know what I mean, bad bitch. But yeah, I'd love to ask somebody who's biracial one day, who's the parent, not that raised you. Hopefully, let's suppose both parents raised you in the two household home. Who's the parent that you identify with best? Okay, they can answer whatever. Then the next leading question would be, okay, who's the parent that had you identify with them the most? Because that's a whole different ballgame. Because who they identify best with would be, it could be simply as, let's say, light skin with black features, or vice versa. Dark skin with white features. There's a lot of either or. But then there's also the fact that you got outside entities, how they view them. I see someone with dark skin, they're black, even though they got fine features. I see someone light skinned, they're whites, but they have black features. So then there's that whole confusion there as well. When you got something as, in those times, I would think, not as common as black and Asian put together. I would think he's just really confused because, to be honest, when you see him growing up, when he's little, like a toddler, infant, school age, whatever, he looks Mexican, to be honest, or maybe Puerto Rican. Then when he grows up in his teens, whatever, too, like the more Asian traits come in too, so he looks more like Filipino, if anything, too. As an older man, he literally looks like, okay, I can't really make up my mind what the fuck he looks like, so he looks like both, to some extent and degree. Imagine having to grow up that way too. You can't immediately identify as, because obviously you're not poor and black. Obviously you're not, middle class and Asian, or working class and Asian as well too. You're well off. Your dad made sure you had a decent upbringing and such. Your mom's not out here running crazy. She just happens to be an Asian mother. So then how does he identify? Because he can't immediately think he's black just because his dad's black. That's like, according to today's terms, that'd be sexist for him to just assume I'm black because my dad's black. That's it. But what about your Asian mom? I'm black, I said. Mostly, at least. Majority of 51-49 black, if anything. Or then if he goes Asian, like, I'm Asian because my mom made more sense growing up, or she was the one that loved me and hugged me the most. But you're black too. I said I'm Asian. Mostly Asian because that's why I choose to identify with. Of course, too. There's that whole confusion going on too. So when he said that he was a Compline Asian, I kind of understood it. Not that I'm validating him, or I'm not trying to write him off like a lot of people did. I think Talib Kweli might have said in one of his rhymes, like, I'm as mixed up as Tiger when he said he's a Compline Asian or something like that. Like, it's easy to dismiss that, but also I think it's more of, it's harder to try to understand what he means by that, because he had to come up with that himself. He's trying to probably still at that point in age figure out who he is, or who exactly he can identify with or lean towards. I mean, if you take me, for example, obviously I'm Spanish. I'm Hispanic, Latino. To be honest, I don't know what fucking term is proper to use myself, except Latinx. Don't ever fucking address me as Latinx. I'm not that much of a cuck or a snowflake or a softy where you need to fucking X out the O because I'm not an A either. I'm Latin. I'm Hispanic. Whatever the fuck. I don't give a shit whatever you call me. Spick if you have to. I don't give a fuck. But the point is, I was born in Peru. I came here at a very young age. I came here literally and I was like maybe barely able to utter a word. At 1.5 years old, I was already here. I spent my first couple of years in California, and then from there, 3, 4 onwards, I've been in New York, Queens specifically, ever since. So if I want to identify as anything, or I can identify myself as anything, it'd be a New Yorker, to be honest. That's all about it is. It just so happens my parents are both fully Peruvian. I am too, but I'm a Peruvian raised in New York, practically born and raised. So then, on a much lesser scale compared to him, because he literally is a mixture of both, I'm confused too sometimes, because then where's my checkbox for fucking light skin, Latino, identifies as a New Yorker? I don't need that catered to me either, but then it's something as simple as whenever I go to fill out a form, in person, online, COVID, mostly online, everything now too, there's no checkbox for me. I have to identify as other, and then they make a whole little subcategory or a branch off as Hispanic, white, Latino, whatever, Latinx, and this shit too. And the fact that on top of that, I can choose not to identify my gender too as well. I get it. I get that's going on too a lot too. But it's just so much that goes on. And I'm sure that's also too in the sense of if you're transitioning from male to female, vice versa, whatever. You don't know what to identify as because maybe from a young age you were born this gender but you felt that way instead, vice versa. That all happens too. That's all things to factor in as well too. So we were kind of harsh to him from the get-go, from very early on, trying to write him off as, he's one of those that don't want to own up to being black. But then do the Asians really own heritage, pride, and claiming Tiger Woods too? I know there was that skit that Chappelle Show did as well too. They made fun of him at his expense, but I think we really were making fun of somebody that we really didn't have to like that, or better yet said, writing him off, because he did take a lot of flack for saying that Compline Asian thing as well. There's that. Then when he becomes famous, of course, who could think of a better, more enticing risk factor than his pussy? Pussy's wonderful. We all come from a pussy. We all aim to be balls deep in some pussy, at least us males, with the female of our choice and preference. And we end up going back to that pussy to make life happen all over again, to make children, to feed into our next generations, our seeds and all that shit too as well. So then you wonder, at this point, he's already racially, internally confused as far as who do I identify as when it comes to race. Or, race, Then he's also got this strict ass fucking father who wants him to be nothing but Mr. Golf Pro, Mr. Golf God, pretty much. So then, shout out to good brother OV132, one half of the Dirty Heels, better yet said. Shout out to you, bro. Appreciate you coming through. But then when you got golf pretty much in the palm of your hands, like you would some golf balls, you're supposed to wash them, I guess, in between every hole because, dirty holes, dirty balls. It's everybody's guilty in that case if everything's dirty. But when you become the god of golf, as he became pretty much, the epitome, the face of golf, how do you avoid the pitfalls of pussy? How do you escape it? How do you run away from it as fast as you can? Because you know what? Listen, there is such a thing as ghosts of pussy past. Thank God, to this day, I have none of those in me. I have no skeletons in my closet. I have no pussy, better yet said, that I regret at all. Every woman I've been with, I've been glad to be with, be it a short amount of time. Even my ex, I don't regret it. But at least I don't have anything I regret as far as almost having a baby or this one trying to blackmail me afterwards too. Unlike Tiger. Because guess what? Strict upbringing, religious mother, military father. That's just a recipe for disaster when it comes to his sex life. Because I'm sure a Buddhist mother isn't going to have the birds and the bees combo with a young Tiger. Also, military dad is too busy busting nuts inside white women, where he's not going to have the sex talk with his son because he's going to feel like, maybe back when he feel like he's gay if he's talking to another guy about sex or feeling these things in his body, or he was just too busy again getting some white pussy to even bother to tell him and explain to him what the fuck's going on. Shout outs to Mutfak_Googlegoon300 for joining. And yes, sex. That's what we're talking about right now, funny enough, of course. But the poor kid has no one, I'm pretty sure, to explain to him. And even if he asked the ex-first girlfriend of his what the sex life was like, which I don't think she even indicated towards. She just remembers him being like goofy, lovable, like nerdy all around the way guy, whatever. Maybe they never even had sex. Maybe that weekend that he snuck around and stayed at her house, maybe, I'm saying. More probably they did. And if they did, good for them, good for her, good for him. At least he got some stress off for that weekend. But there is a chance maybe they didn't. Maybe he was just too scared. He didn't feel like he wanted to pressure her. Something, whatever goes on in that mind at that age too, especially with the upbringing he had. So God knows. So when he does become famous, he does become iconic and legendary and basically identifiable wherever he goes. I'm not saying all. Please don't think I'm saying that at all. But those type of women will flock to him. It's as simple as Rachel Yucatel saying her excuse or whatever she said was, next thing I know, I turn around in the club and there's Tiger Woods just sitting there lonely. We talk, I give him my number, and then 10 minutes after we're done talking outside the club, he just texts me like, when can I see you again? When's the next time I can see you? Excuse me. Forgive me for that guessing. So there's also that part too, which was his downfall because he doesn't know how to conduct himself around women. I mean, no one's a sexpert like that. No one's a real fucking cocksman like that either, let alone Tiger Woods. So when he gets at Rachel Yucatel at the same time, when he gets at all the other women that he's been involved with at that time, that were around during that time, whenever, and all of them that came out the woodworks and said, hey, I was with Tiger too as well, they never painted him as a bad guy. Or unlike Bill Cosby, they never said, oh, I was feeling woozy afterwards, there was pills or whatever too involved. No, they all said oddly the same thing. He made me feel loved. I thought I was the one, and I'm sad that we won't be together anymore. Well, of course, there's always, for the sake of trying to probably get some money out of him, the bag, as they say, or trying to secure some attention, some notoriety from it too as well. They could have just been saying that too. It does seem odd though, and looking at Tiger, everything we've discussed up until now, there is that probability that he might have told all these hoes, let's label them as they are, I'm sorry, even you, Rachel, you could tell, these hoes, that he loved them. Or he'd whisper in their ears, I love you, by the way, this is Tiger, when he's fucking them, on top of them breathing heavy and, fogging up their eyes with his fucking heavy breath, his sex breath. But there's a good probability of that. So then some of these women, I'm not saying all again, let's not generalize, but I'm saying maybe these women in particular in this case might have misunderstood that as, okay, he might actually love me. So then, be it for the convenience of money, for fame, association with a big star, a big sports celebrity figure, whatever, too, as well. Maybe they just thought it was an easy walk in the park, per se, with Tiger Woods. So then their whole world comes crashing down. Their massive plan fucking crumbles in front of them when it gets exposed that, oh shit, I wasn't the only one. And he probably said, I love you to all of them too. And identified themselves as, this is Tiger. On all the voicemails he would leave them too as well. So he mismanaged this thing poorly, entirely. What was it? When it's good, you say that to them. Of course, we're all guilty of that. Listen, when our fucking knees are buckling, our balls are trembling, and we're fucking emptying out all the pent-up frustration from a stressful-ass work week too, I'm sure we definitely said that just because spur of the moment. It just happens. It's immediately associated with such because that's too much thinking into that. I didn't want to make it creepy right now. But yeah, totally get you with that. It's all caught up in the moment. And especially, again, with him, knowing that he really didn't know how to manage himself around women, that's probably what happened too. They feed into that. They think, oh, maybe he does actually love me. And then they come out to the unpleasant surprise that, oh, he didn't. He just loved me for that moment. He just loved my pussy, whatever. A little too much. But Rachel, you could tell, seemed to be the main one because he would say things like, I want to live my life with you. I want to build with you together and all that shit too. And even when he called her to tell her about, when she was going to go to tabloid and tell her side of the story when everything broke, it's like, okay, get as much as you can pretty much, which is subtly like looking out for her, oddly enough, even though everything had happened already. And again, it wasn't like she came out of the woodwork saying, as far as I remember, she didn't come out saying, I slept with Tiger Woods, he fucked me, and said I was the one. Meanwhile, he had the one at his side and the ring on his finger to prove otherwise too. No, it just got put out there. I mean, people really delved into his business and exposed what had happened. And of course, the crash, everything going on inside their house, and the wife chasing after him didn't help either. But then everything came crashing down. And that's why I said earlier too as well, I think Rachel Yucatel really took the brunt of most of the load just for the fact that she was the one that he cheated on his wife with. I mean, the other ones that were involved got their like 15 seconds of fame and their like little bit of attention, whatever too as well. But they didn't get like as slaughtered as she did, at least in the tabloids. I mean, it was really unfair to her. I mean, she's as guilty as he is too, but she's not as guilty or as dirty or as dumb, as poorly handled as he did too as well, the whole situation. So that was definitely unfair and hard to, I can't even imagine being her at that moment when everything had just been exposed and you're in the midst of knee deep in the shit per se. But it's crazy to think that we also, not so much we, but at least his loyal fans or golf fanatics And even worse, what bothered me the most is the fact that maybe they didn't make him. I believe it was his PR that did. But the heads of, or the old miserable cucks who were probably doing way worse things than he ever did at the PGA and shit, had these comments to say to him after he apologized. First off, why did he have to apologize? And to who exactly? For what? For getting caught cheating? For not being as Puritan as we assumed he would be just because he's married and he's a sports icon and all this and all that too? He doesn't owe us anything. He never did. What he owes to us is fucking putting on a good golf game, entertaining us, hooking us in like he did for that time, and being a sports figure. I mean, that's all he's done. That's all he ever had to do anyway. He didn't owe nothing else to us, let alone an apology. So I don't know why he had to come out and save grace with that too, admit his faults and just be like all this and all that. And then on top of that, the boot, while he had to do it, or better yet said, while he did it, they have to add on to, well, you know, besides the fact that he lived as dirty as he did, and thank God he apologized, it doesn't, you know, sweep everything under the rug considering what he did, but we'll make sure that from now on he's no longer active in those kind of illicit activities, or that this great sport of golf, boring ass sport golf, is no longer tarnished or blemished with all these kind of tabloid illicit activities that went on, and et cetera too. It's like, come on, Dick. I'm saying most of these guys, if not all of them, were probably doing much worse than Tiger, but no one's chasing after them because you know, they're white. So what else is new there, right? I mean, it's just sad that we didn't deserve an apology. No one had to be apologized to. Maybe the women, because they were all misled, quote unquote, into thinking Tiger was going to drop his wife for all of them, or either one of them as well too, and have, you know, the white picket fence and more children than what he has already with them, settle down with them of all hoes. But okay, whatever, that's all that too. Shout out again to Rachel. You could tell, I think she took a lot more than she had to, and it was kind of unfair to her overall. I mean, a lot, right. She did what she did. I'm sure she saw a ring at some point too and probably should have stayed away, but she didn't. But oh well, it's not the worst thing in the world either. He's just as guilty as all of them Mars. But I don't know. And then also just, he falls out of grace. He starts, his body at least, his temple, better yet said, starts to dilapidate as far as his age is showing and the pain he starts to suffer. The knees, the back, he can't play at some point too. He has to, I guess, unofficially retire, whatever he did too, but then eventually to come back too. So, I mean, you can always read into the whole thing as you choose to. It's on the internet. It's, as a lot of things on the internet now, it'll never be deleted, so you can read up on it, do the research you want to. I mean, for the sake of having, 3 hours worth of HBO about Tiger Woods to delve into, you got that also. So, to wrap up, what's there to be said? Oh, actually, too. So, in conclusion, coming back to that point, too, I made initially, with all that going on, he was deprived of a childhood. He definitely wasn't taught to about sex at any age. He didn't know how to handle himself around women. He only knew to be absolutely excellent at golf, like a lot of geniuses or prodigies are. They only know to do and excel at one thing they're good at, but then everything else that might factor in slightly or just might be outside of that immediate realm or zone they go into, they know nothing about. They poorly manage it, or they need people around them to help them manage it or handle it too. That's the thing with a lot of, it's like Rain Man, it's like genius mathematicians, they're like brilliant, like transcendental figures when it comes to math and physics and all this other complicated shit, but they don't know how to screw in a light bulb unless someone tells them how to or shows them how to. Something simple as that. So of course, he was set up for failure. No childhood, deprived of it, deprived of a normal life, made to be this whole one thing according to his father, which he only wanted him to be, but no one ever checked in with Tiger to see what did he want to do, Does he really want to do the golf thing? Does he have goals and aspirations outside of the golf thing? Well, what if he would have made it with a clean bill of health to the very end and no back issues, no knee issues? What was he going to do after that when he wins repeatedly year after year? I mean, he is a golf god practically. What else is there left to do besides dominate the sport until you can no longer stand on your own 2 feet? That's all I'm saying. If anything, it would have turned into like a real life, like that movie, The Wrestler. A great movie, by the way, with Mickey Rourke. Tragic ending like that, too. Well, we can assume that ending was kind of up in the air as he was with his final move, as he did. No spoilers, by the way, but just saying. But yeah, the Tiger Woods doc overall in itself on HBO now, still currently on demand. If you got the HBO add-on to Hulu like I do, you can watch it whenever you feel like to as well. Or it's on HBO practically all the time now. They like doing that with their, more acclaimed, more, or the series that get more buzz, notoriety too. They're on all day practically, just like all the movies they do the same thing with as well. But that's the doc in itself. There's a lot to be said, a lot more probably be uncovered as far as Tiger Woods is concerned. But point being, who this been watching? Now it's time to recap and review. Well, we did a whole review right now and recap. I mean, it's time to give this fucking thing a rating. According to my rating system, which I introduced courtesy of all things, Wonder Woman 1984, because I still don't know to this day, because of the pandemic, I'll probably forgive them and go light on them. But I'm looking at you, Warner Brothers, as far as the 2.5 hours I can't get back because of that trash fucking sequel to the otherwise delightful joy that was the very first Wonder Woman, starring Gal Gadot, of course. But this is the Who This Been Watching rating system. Now listen, you got your basic, average, plain, Jane-ass fucking ratings with thumbs and stars and your mother's cunt lips, whatever, too, whatever you want to use to determine and judge things properly. But still, listen, I do things my way because I want to be more identifiable with you out there, whoever's watching and listening by now at this point. I appreciate you all for checking in too as well, by the way. Much appreciated as always. Right now, I got to break it down to you like this. So yeah, we're going to start from the very top and work our way down the rating system so you know where we stand and what's clear. And please feel free to ask questions if you got any too, and comment as well too. So if, let's say, something's equivalent to a 4 out of 4 or like a 2 thumbs from Siskel and Ebert, whatever, whoever you want to compare it to, I want to go with a yes, meaning yes, give me some more. Yes, give me a sequel. Yes, give me a prequel. Whatever the fuck you gotta give me, I want some more of this soon enough because it was that good, a classic, a masterpiece. I gotta recommend this to everybody I know that's got a pulse out there walking down the street. Of course, socially distanced, 6 feet away and with a mask on too. I'm gonna have to utter it like, you better make sure to watch the Tiger documentary on HBO because it's always so good, blah, 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 blah. Kind of like that. That same kind of vibe and energy too. Now, if something's not so classic, masterpiece like, or the epitome of film, or docs, TV series, whatever. If it's only like a 3 out of 4, something like that-esque per se, we're going to have to bring it down to a which is really good. It's better than just good. It's really good. It's great. I love it still. I recommend it to whoever I can, but I'm not singing about it like a fucking bird would. Or just like that. But I do recommend it strongly. I still say go ahead and watch it and enjoy yourself, and most likely it'll be a hit with you as well too, like it was with me. Now, if we go further down the scale, if something's like a 2 out of 4, something equivalent to that, we'll go with a O, which means, well, it's middle ground. I thought it'd be worse, but it was actually pretty good, or vice versa. I was expecting a lot more, be a lot better, but then, it was not that good. It was, okay, kind of mid. I don't know how to feel about it. I'm kind of, depending on the day and mood, I might watch it, I might skip it, whatever. Now, if we go even further down the scale, if we got to go to a 1 out of 4, which is not the end, not the bottom of the barrel, not scraping it even close. If we got to go with a 1 out of 4, I like to dub that as a meh, which means meh. It's pretty bad, but it's not horrible. It's bad, but there's at least one good scene in it that I could recommend, kinda, or I'll come back to as a guilty pleasure. Or meh, like in the case of when I gave Wonder Woman a meh. Meh. Gal Gadot's a piece of ass. So I might give it another chance considering I loved her in the gold dominatrix outfit towards the very end and then the Wonder Woman outfit period to begin with because she's such a luscious piece of ass. What a woman. And what a wonder of a woman. Ha. But also now, finally, and in conclusion, if something is that abysmal, that terrible, that trash-worthy, I never want to watch this thing again in my life. Who approved the budget to make this film exist in the first place? Why would China, on top of allegedly giving us COVID, give us this fucking movie too on top of that? That's a 0 out of 4. I gotta go with a why. Why would anyone greenlight this who has a mind that works and a heart enough to be considerate to the rest of mankind? What were you thinking? Why? That's a 0 out of 4. That's bottom of the barrel. Which in this case right now with the Tiger documentary series on HBO, which you can catch on HBO Max on demand wherever you got to go else to watch it, I'm going to go with, considering it was a pleasant surprise, I got to go with a 3 out of 4 or a pleasant surprise. What did you think about the Mortal Kombat remake that's coming in April? I actually did a review of the original Mortal Kombat, the first one from 1995, I want to say 2 episodes ago. It's up on the audio format podcast and the YouTube channel. In here, my IGTV, so check that out. That was a mid-ground. I don't hate it, I don't love it. Briefly with that, if I make it before the Scorpion Johnny Cage fight, I'll watch the rest of it if it's on TV randomly, whatever. If I make it past that fight, I don't watch the rest of it. I can't. It kind of loses its charisma with me. I'm looking forward to the remake. That little glimpse we got of Sub-Zero in that trailer for the HBO Max movies they're releasing looks pretty fucking cool. So, and it's rated R. And I read that there's supposed to be fatalities included this time around, so hopefully we'll get a pleasant surprise out of that one, just like this one was. And thank you again, 810_pro_wrestling_podcast for your input and your comment on that Mortal Kombat movie. As far as this is concerned, the Tiger doc, I gotta go again with a 3 out of 4. Even though I feel like it shouldn't have been 2 1.5 hour episodes like it was. Everything could have been a little bit better condensed. I would have said either 2 hours, 1 episode, or let's say 2 1-hour episodes. The good thing is there wasn't a lot of filler. There wasn't a lot of excess golf footage or my mom chiming in about my son was such a saint and this, that, whatever. Or there was just enough of everything to still keep you entertained, even though it was, again, 1.5 hours each episode, only 2 episodes. I think we got enough of that. I was also kind of fearful that it'd be like all golf, statistics of golf and the history of golf and all this shit too. No, thank God. They got that out of the way early to be like, okay, first girlfriend, Rachel Yucatel, scandal, dad's friends, dad was a dirty dog, pretty much, etc., etc. So they kept it entertaining enough, and HBO by now really knows how to fucking like hit it out the park. Besides the series, they know how to do this shit with the sports and all that too. So I'll stick with that, and also we got the proper insight to justify why I always felt bad, at least about Tiger, even from back when we all joked on him, but I still feel kind of bad, like, you know what, he seems like he's kind of a dork. No better way to describe it, but he seems like a dork, like a nerd, like he just wasn't told properly about all these things. We got that insight, we got just enough to better understand the man, and we got served as far as the whole story. Again, thank God it wasn't extremely biased or trying to paint the women he was involved with as victims or he's the victim or none of that shit. It was all well properly served. I can't say it's perfect just because, again, I felt a little too long, maybe a little too much at some points, but otherwise, no complaints. I loved it overall. Strongly recommend it. 3 out of 4. Otherwise. Again, thank you all so much for joining me on another live edition where you'll always get it first live here on Instagram, on my Instagram page, Who This Is One, Who This Been Watching. The recap review show you'll probably fear the most, considering if it's your film or TV series I'll review. If I'm going to tear it apart, I'm going to tear into it deep. Flesh wounds inside your guts. Whatever I got to do. But also, if I like your product, I'll speak until I can't speak no more. As best I can, as much as I'm allowed to, considering IG has guidelines, I think. As long as I don't play music in this bitch, I think I'm good. I'll praise it if it's praiseworthy. But who has been watching? Thanks again. Join me every Saturday. Times to be determined, but better yet said, roughly 3:30, 4 o'clock-ish. Every Saturday here on my page is where you'll get who has been watching first live. So feel free to jump into the comments, ask questions, whatever you want to do with it too as well. Whatever you got to chime in with. Also, a couple of days later, every episode will be available on my YouTube page as well. Who This Is 1, the number 1 at the end, as well as every single digital streaming platform for your audio podcast of preference, wherever you get it from. Google, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, etc. IBM, if they have a podcast platform. I think they're too geeky to even understand what podcasts are, because they have podcasts amongst each other in their fucking cubicles and whatnot. Well, they're not in office right now. They're working from home. So who the fuck knows? They're probably living out that real life, what was that Joaquin Phoenix movie where he was in love with the phone or the computer? Her or something like that. They're probably too busy living out the real life version of that shit in the flesh or in the microchips, is whatever the fuck they got working in the phones here too. But thanks so much for joining me again. Also, please follow me on Twitch if you do the Twitch thing. Also, Who This Is 1. I game. I'm a proud gamer, but I game very badly, so watch at your own risk. But mostly for my banter, I'll get the setup soon enough, so you can hear me talk my shit while I crash into fucking walls like I am right now with Gran Turismo. PS4 Pro up in this bitch. I'm not getting PS5 until motherfucking the black one drops. Every day is Black PS5 Pro Day for me, bros. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you all. For those of you that chimed in, joined in too, I'll see you next week. Thanks so much. And thanks for the support. Taga Woods.